What do you remember about the 2018 Redbox Bowl? If you're not an Oregon or Michigan State fan, probably nothing. Over the next 12 or so minutes, I'll tell you why that's a good thing. Because you see the title of the video, you know what this is. It's Worst Game Ever, Episode 2. And on New Year's Eve 2018, Michigan State and Oregon played in what I can only describe as an affront to the game of football. It's Worst Game Ever, Episode 2. Let's get to the shit show. So I actually was very close to going to this game. The stars aligned and somebody I know had an extra ticket. What do you know? I was invited. And I'd waffled all week. In the morning of, I was like, no, there's no way. It was ugly despite the weather and how sunny it looks. There was like 30-mile-an-hour winds. Michigan State was very bad. I didn't want to see that in person. Probably the best choice I've ever made in my life. And you can see why, because first drive, Oregon goes 3 and out and brings out its punt team. And hey, look, a punt counter on the bottom left part of your screen. I wonder if that's foreshadowing exactly how this game is going to go. It is, because less than 2 minutes later, Michigan State punts the ball right back. And take a look at that graphic there on the scorebug. Yeah, if there's one graphic I've seen that has distilled exactly how a team's season has gone, it's that one. And while we're on the subject, we might as well talk about it. And don't worry, I'm going to continue to leave the footage here so you know you're not missing anything. There's like 4 more punts as this is going on. But there was actually a lot of optimism about Michigan State's offense heading into that season. And it was mostly because of quarterback Brian Lewerke. And even Joe Davis says on the broadcast that a lot of people thought he was a dark horse Heisman candidate. And yeah, you can see there by that collage I put together. That was, by a lot of people, he means Michigan State fans. But like, this was a thing, and people bought into the fact that Michigan State's offense might be better that season. Those people were very wrong, because not only were they bad, but I would argue relative to their talent, they were one of the worst Power 5 offenses in modern college football history. They were bottom 6 in yards per play nationally. They had the second worst scoring average in the conference, ahead of only just a terrible Rutgers offense. And they only scored 27 touchdowns in 13 games. If you look at the last part of the season there at the bottom, from the Ohio State game through this bowl game, they scored 2 touchdowns in the last 4 games of the season. And both of those were against that Rutgers team, and they barely eked out that win. And you may have noticed the Michigan stat line there. Yeah, that's a real thing. 94 total yards in that game, 1.84 yards per play, including Brian Lewerke going 5 for 25 passing for 66 yards. And so we're clear, it wasn't just him. The offense being bad was more than just Brian Lewerke. They had injuries, a lot of coaching problems. We could do a 35-minute video just on how much of a joke Michigan State's offensive coaching staff was for the last few years of the D'Antonio era. But man, this was an offense that was next level bad. All right, back to the game. This next sequence is dedicated to all the "you just don't know how to appreciate good defense" truthers out there, because this is not good defense. You take another look at this, and this is a ball perfectly thrown right off of Dylan Mitchell's face mask. Not good defense. So Oregon is punting yet again, and we'll see what Michigan State can do. It's 3rd and 10. What are they going to call here? I don't know what route this is or what sort of playbook has that, but they'll be punting again. And you know what? I love good defense. Michigan State had a great defense. Oregon's was okay. None of this is awesome defense. Look at this. Herbert rolls, throws. It looks like it's a PBU, but no, that's just a drop. So you know what? I love great defense. I love watching defensive players fly around, but sometimes you see a piece of shit on the sidewalk, and that's all it is. It's a piece of shit. That's this game. Somehow we're still in the first quarter, because there's been 7 possessions, but 7 punts, so just no time has gone off the clock. But as you saw there, Michigan State picks up a first down, and then they start cooking a little bit on 3rd and 5 here. Brian Lewerke makes a nice play, scrambles out of pressure, gets a first down, and Michigan State at the end of the first is in scoring position. All right, so things are looking up for this game. No, because on the first play of the second quarter, this happens.
Lewerke drops a snap, trying to find it like a bar of soap. Finally does, and heaves it wildly. That one is intercepted.
The only thing I could think of here was Wario from Mario Kart 64.
Here I go! Ay, 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 ay! Wah!
I gotta keep it a buck, though, and give props to Oregon's Javon Holland for making a spectacular play there. But secondly, this would be the most embarrassing play of the season for like 98% of the teams in the country. Not 2018 Michigan State, though, because this play happened against Ohio State earlier in the year. I know I've spent most of this video burying Michigan State's offense from that season, but it's really just hard to understate how much of a tire fire they were and how much they took away from what could have been a pretty good team because the defense was legitimately great, but the offense couldn't do anything. The execution was bad, the coaching was bad, and when all those stars align, this is the stuff that happens. All right, quick speed run through the rest of the second quarter. Oregon barely misses out on what would have been a beautiful touchdown, and they have to punt. Would have been a great punt, but when the ball gets down to the 1 yard line, as you see here, bounces, this guy knocks it into the end zone for a touchback. Michigan State, they get sacked, and they have to punt. Meanwhile, Jim Tressel is doing the Vince McMahon face as this is all happening. Oregon throws a 2 yard check down on 3rd and 5. They have to punt. This is the 10th punt of the first half. There's still almost 9 minutes left. Michigan State's whole line false starts, but they actually mount another drive. They get into Oregon territory, and on 4th and 1, they call this bootleg, and the ball goes absolutely nowhere, and they have to give it up. We managed to squeeze in 2 more punts by the end of the first half, despite Michigan State once again getting into Oregon territory and heading to the locker room tied 0-0. Take a look at those first half stats. Oregon has less than 100 total yards. The teams have combined for 13 first downs, and while it's not on the graphic, we know, thanks to our handy punt counter, that there have been 12 first half punts. I don't know if this is the worst first half I've ever watched, but it's in contention. The second half starts a little bit better, though, because Michigan State's on the move again. They're starting to move the ball a little bit. In their last 3 drives, they have 10 first downs, and they're getting inside Oregon territory, but once again, they just can't close the deal. But this time, they don't turn the ball over. They're forced to kick, but hey, look, we have our first points of the game, and they're up 3-0. Meanwhile, Oregon is just still getting bullied by the Michigan State defense, and that's really why I'm not taking any shots at them, because Michigan State, I keep harping on it, they were really freaking good defensively, so it's not like a surprise that Oregon wasn't able to move the ball, and Michigan State did this to a lot of teams that season, and Oregon isn't helping themselves, as we'll see here in a second, but Michigan State's doing a really good job, and this is in a very sick way, the exact type of game Michigan State wants to play. Even still, it's hard to deny that Oregon just looked downright sloppy. They had almost no chance of running the ball at all. Justin Herbert was a little bit off all game, and then receivers had like 6 or 7 drop passes. It was just downright odd watching a quarterback this good and an offense this talented really struggle, even against a defense as good as Michigan State's. Important to point out, though, on that drive, Big Ten Defensive Lineman of the Year, Kenny Willekes, gets hurt and is out for the game. There's a nice little Easter egg in that frame. If you know, you know. And Michigan State, once again, great field position inside the 20. And once again, I don't know what the fuck that is. And they have to settle for 3 points, 34-yard field goal. Honestly, I know it went through. That should not count. And yes, boys, I feel the exact same way watching this game. So we close the third quarter out with Justin Herbert being sacked once again. And before we get to the punt, I want to bring up a pet peeve. And it's during games at Levi Stadium where they show these gratuitous shots of San Francisco. I live out here. It's nowhere close. 48 minutes, maybe in the height of the pandemic when everybody was inside. And yeah, I said what I said on the graphic. It's true. Anyway, the fourth quarter starts, and you can see there, this is Oregon's 10th punt of the game. No better way to start the fourth quarter than that, I guess. A team built like 2018 Michigan State's wins by controlling field position and converting when you have the opportunities. The controlled field position, they dominated in that, but they had the ball 6 times inside Oregon's 35-yard line and came up with 6 points. And I don't care how good your defense is, eventually an offense as good as Oregon's is going to take advantage of that. And out of nowhere, they go on this warp speed, 6-play, 77-yard touchdown drive, and it's capped off by a beautiful throw from Justin Herbert to Mitchell, who, yeah, makes the catch there, but when you see the replay, just barely. And as Michigan State gets back into Oregon territory again, you might think, damn, this game's been pretty terrible, but we're in for an exciting finish at least. But no, because the next play is where this game completely goes off the cliff because Michigan State calls this fake jet sweep screen that goes nowhere, and it's a textbook call from a coaching staff who's been getting killed all season. And then when it doesn't work, after the game, they say, oh, well, we called the fake jet sweep screen. Well, what more do you want from us? Which, by the way, Mark D'Antonio does absolutely that in his post-game press conference. And then they shank the field goal. So now it's Oregon's turn to do something stupid, and after, again, the offense is starting to work here, they move the ball into Michigan State territory and have a 3rd and 8. For some reason, they decide to call a Justin Herbert keeper. I don't know. Maybe to go for it. You got your options open. The kicking team comes out, but then everybody motions over. But my favorite part of all this is, like, look at Michigan State. These guys aren't even phased at all. It's like they see their coaching staff do dumb shit like this every day in practice. They're not even worried about it. And, of course, it just goes horribly wrong. The Chuck Pagano vibes are immaculate. And Oregon loses like 12 yards of field position on one of the worst plays you'll ever see. Why is Oregon just not punting here? You've already punted 10 times. Why not make it 11 and make one of the worst offenses in the country drive down the length of the field? Why, if you're going to go for it, are you not using your All-American quarterback? And why are all your players running routes like they're fucking Drake from the Laugh Now, Cry Later video? And the funniest thing about it is it might not even be the worst special teams play of this game, because it's coming up right here. So Michigan State, again, gifted awesome field position, and again, inside the Oregon 35. And what do they do on 3rd and 8? Nobody can get 3rd and 8 in this game. Basically, their whole line doesn't know the snap count. Brian Lewerke almost fumbles, and they have to settle for a field goal. But despite that and everything else they've done wrong in this game, they still have a chance to maybe win here. But I want you to stop. And in your mind, real quick, just picture the worst possible thing that could happen to Michigan State on this play. You got it? All right, let's roll it.
Out of the hold of Brian Lewerke. A low snap. Lewerke picks it up. Fire drill is on. He won't even throw it away.
We really need a detailed breakdown of this play. First, the snap. It's not great, but it's catchable. Lewerke just duffs it. Then the kicker runs up to it, stops, and then looks for somebody to block as Lewerke's scrambling around. Then you have Mark D'Antonio, who just can't figure out why he can't win, scoring 10 points per game. And then look at number 99 running downfield trying to make a play for Lewerke, who doesn't get called for grounding because he was out of the pocket and threw the ball out of bounds over the line of scrimmage. Phenomenal. And then lastly, my favorite part, look at Mario Cristobal's face. Right there. This is a man who's probably been in the game of football for over 40 years and just is in absolute disbelief in what he's seeing. I said earlier that I turned down the chance to go to this game, and I still don't regret that, but man, I wish I could have seen this play in person. But I was in the stadium for what the Alabama field goal team did a few weeks after this. But we still have to add the cherry to the top of this shit Sunday, because no, it's not over. I'm crying inside. Michigan State had 3 timeouts, and Oregon is lining up for our 18th total punt of the game. Thank you to our handy punt counter, and I don't even have words for this. Michigan State fumbles the ball, but the guy who returns it gets a couple of yards. This game, man, I don't know how anything can top this one. And it's fitting that Michigan State gets one last chance to try to win this game because they have great field position and more than enough time. And really all they do is just play the hits that we've seen throughout the first 58 and a half minutes of this game. I went in pretty hard on Michigan State this whole video because they were just an easier target. But nothing in this game makes me think that like Oregon outplayed them or was any better, even up till this last play here where Michigan State could have gotten in field goal range and the Oregon guy's on him, but like he just kind of drops the ball. So Oregon doesn't get any credit here either. But mercifully, this game is over. Our winner and new worst game ever champion is the 2018 Redbox Bowl. I don't care what your opinion is. This is the worst game I've ever watched. 18 total punts, 13 total points. I promised myself I wouldn't make this longer than 15 minutes, so all that stuff on the screen, please do that and stay tuned for the next episode of Worst Game Ever coming soon. I'll catch you guys then.